What's up, everybody? I'm back here to make my 2023-2024 NHL standings and playoff predictions. I am going to start with the Metropolitan Division, and I know I'm going to say some things that are they'll be considered hot takes, but I'm going to start off with first place in the Metro Division. That's going to be the New Jersey Devils. The New Jersey Devils, I know Carolina looks very strong, and they are a strong team, and they will be. I, I I've got to say, being honest here, New Jersey almost won the Metro last year, and with their team they had already, and they went out there and they had minor subtractions. Probably, in my opinion, the biggest was maybe Damon Severson, but but then you have Luke Hughes, who could come in and replace him, or obviously Tomas Tatar. At the current moment, it looks like he's gone. It would be nice to see him come back in the black and red, but it doesn't look like that's happening. That'll be a minus. But then they went out there and they got Tyler Toffoli in a trade for absolutely nothing, which is huge improvement. And he had a 70-plus point season last year with the Calgary Flames. And for anyone with good hockey knowledge knows the Calgary Flames was not a team that a player that averages 40, 50 points would be scoring 70 points with and having a record year, because there was not a lot of that going on. There was actually a lot of records, but they weren't good records for people like Jonathan Huberdeau that were supposed to be their saviors, but that we'll wait till later for that one. So yeah, the New Jersey Devils went out. They got Tyler Toffoli. I think that's a pretty fair pick for first place. And then second place, like I said earlier, it's going to be the Carolina Hurricanes. The Carolina Hurricanes are just a juggernaut of a team, and they've been Rod Brind'Amour. I get how a lot of people don't like him, but he is a good coach, and they're easily going to be first or second next year unless they are riddled with tons of injuries. But even in the playoffs, they were riddled with injuries, and they still made it to the conference finals this year. Then third place in the Metro. This is where people are going to, be a little upset with me, but I'm going to put the Pittsburgh Penguins. I know, shocking. The Pittsburgh Penguins, and I know a lot of people have the Rangers in that second or third spot, but I have to put the Pittsburgh Penguins. They went out there, they got Erik Karlsson. Of course, he's not a great defender, but he's a great offensive defenseman. I mean, obviously, he put up more points than people like Jack Hughes and very strong forwards in the league. He went out there and outperformed them as a defenseman, and I think that's a huge pickup. I like what Dubas is doing with them, and I think they're going to make it in there in third place. Then a wild card spot, the first wild card spot, is going to go to the New York Rangers. As I said in my previous video, the Rangers, obviously, I could see them having a great year, go up to second, and having a horrible year and going to sixth. I know, hot take, but that's how I personally feel about that team. I don't think they're not where they were last year because of how they played in the playoffs, and really, even in the regular season last year was the heart. But I could be wrong. They could get second, third place. I wouldn't be too surprised. But right now, I really see them getting fourth in that first wild card spot in the Eastern Conference. Now, fifth place. This is another interesting pick, and I think I'm going to have to go with the New York Islanders, because the New York Islanders are getting old, and I know they're a year or two away from being a bottom 2, bottom 3 team in their division and a lottery team. I think it's very possible you could see them go 8th this year, but I also think it's very likely you could see them battle down to the last day of the season for the playoffs and grind it out and edge past the Rangers or the Penguins for a playoff spot, but I don't think they're fully there. They've got Sorokin, but we'll see if he could stay fully healthy. But other than that, their core is solid right now, but very old. Very, very old. I know in my last video I talked about how old the Rangers are. The Islanders are a problem too. But I like some of the things they're doing. And obviously Horvat has to be better this year than he was last year. I don't like that trade they made, but they're a solid team, but maybe not a playoff team. I have them going 5th. Now, 6th place in the Metropolitan Division. This I'm going to give to the Columbus Blue Jackets. The Columbus Blue Jackets are going to be right up there, maybe 80-something points. Maybe if they're really good, 90-something points. But you're not going to get much better after an 8th place finish for the first time in a while. Like, I know the Devils, they had a horrible, horrible year in 21-22 and then had the biggest turnaround season in NHL history in 2022-23. But that's because they were at that bottom 8-7 spot for it was since 2018 at that point. So that's why the Columbus, you're going to see some improvement because their roster can't be that bad. They had some solid additions like Damon Severson and Provorov, but they're never I could see him grind it out and get that wild card spot because again, I'm going to say, I haven't said it before, I think right now the 1 and 2 spot are not really in contention in my opinion, but I think that 3rd and 4th place in the Metro, the 2 playoff spots, I think there's going to be a lot of contention for that in the Metro. So now that we're done with 6, we're on to our 7th place team. 7th place team, this could be controversial, but it shouldn't. The Washington Capitals. I like some of the things they're doing, but they say that their main focus isn't Ovechkin breaking the record, but we all know it is, and they haven't been making any signings or doing anything to prove that that's not their goal, and they're going to be so like some teams that get so hyped about winning the first round that they just crap the bed in the second round. It's going to be something like that. They're going to over-celebrate when he wins, when he breaks that record, Gretzky's record. Once he does that, they're just going to, the fans are going to lose their mind, the team, and then they're going to play horribly. Ovi will be solid as he usually is, and they're going to finish 7th and be a lottery team. Then last place, one of the worst teams in hockey, the Philadelphia Flyers. A lot of people don't like Tortsy, Coach Tortorella. I like him, to be honest. I think I could see him pushing that team up to 6th place, max 5th place ceiling, but that's very unlikely. I would be surprised, but I think it's possible, very unlikely. But I think management, you see how how people in their organization, it was kind of funny on the Zoom call. They thought they were muted and they were talking about how horrible their team is. I think there's a all-around acceptance from management and everyone that they're not going to be good, and they're just going to make their team try and tank for a first overall pick or so next year. So that concludes the Metro, and I know 5 teams from a division could make the playoffs if the Atlantic only has 3 or vice versa, but I think it's just going to be 4, first place Devils, 2nd place Carolina, 3rd place Pittsburgh, and then wild card spot 1, the New York Rangers. Now onto the Atlantic Division. Now, this is a fun one. The Atlantic. I'm going to have one pick that a lot of people are going to call me out on, but so many people are sleeping on this team. But not for the first pick. The first place is going to go to none other than the Toronto Maple Leafs. That goes without saying. They've added Tyler Bertuzzi, which is just ridiculous how great their forwards are. They're up there with teams like the Devils and the Hurricanes with the best top 6 in hockey. So yeah, first place, that's pretty simple of a pick. And then second place, call me crazy, the Buffalo Sabres. They are going to be amazing this year, in my opinion. I watched what they did last year, and they made some small additions. They give me vibes that New Jersey gave me last offseason. A lot of people are sleeping on them. A lot of people are saying that maybe there will be some improvement. Maybe they'll make a wild card. Maybe they'll be in 6th, 5th place, and they're another year out. I say no. No way. Because last year they had these great heaters, and they looked on fire, and then they would go on big losing streaks. If they could correct that, and I really think if they could correct those losing streaks and just win, they could be like New Jersey and have one of those maybe 13, 14 game winning streak next year. They're one of those teams. They have a style similar to New Jersey, from the way I watch it. They also, I think I think they could win the division. They could come close to it. I don't think they will, but kind of like, again, New Jersey, I keep bringing up a big turnaround season. It wouldn't be a huge turnaround season for Buffalo, but they almost did it last year. Why not this year? I mean, if they just won one more game last year, I think it was one or two more games. I think it was 1 or 2 games. If they won last year rather than having those losing streaks they did, they would have been in the playoffs over the Florida Panthers, who went to the Stanley Cup final. Though they lost, they went that far, and they won the Eastern Conference. Then third place, I am going to put the Florida Panthers. I think a lot of people are overhyping them. A lot of people are very putting them down quite a bit, but I don't really understand why. I think third place is a solid pick for Florida, because if they could just play the way they did in the playoffs throughout the season, they'll be solid. They're not going to be the best, but they'll be solid. Now, fourth place and the second wild card just squeezing in there, the Boston Bruins. That team that had that great year, but they lost Tyler Bertuzzi. I know he was a deadline addition, but he was solid for them. They lost him. They lost Krejci. They lost Bergeron, and they're going to be in a little bit of trouble at points throughout the year, but I think they'll barely make it in that last wild card spot. And now, fifth place, the Tampa Bay Lightning. They are just going to barely miss this one. I know that sounds crazy. They are due for a year where they're not the best of the best. They are due for a year like that. Again, they're going to battle it down. They're going to be that team that just misses by a point or two, the wild card spot. But that they're going to be in it for a while. Then now we're on to sixth place, another team that's going to be just a few points out of the playoffs. The Ottawa Senators. I mean, I could also see that team making the playoffs and surprising a lot of people, because I think that that Boston spot that's one spot that will be in contention. That's going to be a team that's going to be battling throughout the end of the year, from the deadline to the end, to keep that spot. And I think a few teams are going to give them a run for their money, like the Islanders, the Lightning, the Senators. And now on to my seventh pick, another team that is going to be not a horrible seventh place team, and is going to be an 80 or so point team that are going to be in contention for that wild card spot. The Detroit Red Wings. They are not good, but they're not bad. I don't like what their management is doing, but it could work. It could not work. They could make the playoffs. I could see that, but they could also be horrible. But who knows? And now eighth place is going to probably go to the Montreal Canadiens. A lot of people don't like their draft pick this year, David Reinbacher. I think that's going to turn out to be a great pick, in my opinion. I think they're doing the right thing. I think they're building, and they're going to have an explosion year in the next 2 years or so, and they're going to maybe win the Atlantic or come close to it in the next 2 years because that they're just that type of team. I just don't think they're there yet. They could be, but I don't think so. I think it's very, very unlikely you see them in the playoffs this year, though. Now the Pacific Division. I'm gonna try and because I'm taking up a lot of time trying to go through this quick. Vegas Golden Knights probably going to win the President's Trophy. Then second place in the Pacific. I'm probably going to go with the Kings, but that pick could fall apart and someone else could easily take that away. Then you're gonna have the Edmonton Oilers get in there, obviously McDavid and all. Then wild card, the first wild card team is going to be the Seattle Kraken by quite a lot. They're just not going to be good enough to beat the Oilers. Maybe if the LA pick falls apart, they'll be third or second place, but they'll be in fourth and the first wild card, and then the second wild card because the Pacific is stacked. Second wild card will go to none other than the Calgary Flames. I know, crazy, but Huberdeau cannot be that bad. There's no way. He's going to have a bounce back season. Uyghur's going to be good. I think the addition of Yegor Sharangovich, I know they lost to Foley, but I think it's going to turn out to work out for them in some sort of way. I think he's going to fit in over there. And then Markstrom's going to probably have a good year because at times, he could easily win a Vezina at some point. I could foresee he might win the Vezina next year. Probably not, but it's likely he could win the Vezina. Then sixth place, the Ducks. They're going to be in contention for a playoff spot, but they're going to miss it probably. I mean, you never know. They could have an explosive year like Buffalo last year or New Jersey last year and do something that surprises a lot of people and raises eyebrows, but probably not yet. The keyword not yet. Then we move on to our next pick, and that is going to be the Vancouver Canucks. Again, they're going to be competitive, yes. Not enough, though. And then last place. Who else other than the San Jose Sharks? Really horrible trades. Erik Karlsson, Timo Meier, they did not get enough out of those trades. Horrible trades. Now the Central Division. I'm actually going to go with the Dallas Stars to win this division after losing it last year to the Avs. Then the Avs are going to be competitive there. They're going to come in second. They're going to come close to the Stars, but they're going to come in second. Third place and the last playoff team, the Minnesota Wild. Then fourth place, just missing out on the playoffs, the Preds. They'll be back in it after next season, but next season's going to just be a year to get their stuff together. I like their GM change. That could help a lot of things for sure. Then the Blues, they're going to be competitive, just not great enough. They just had an off year last year. They're going to try and get their stuff back together, but I can easily see them doing great. Then the Arizona Coyotes, or maybe in a year or two, they'll be something else, like the Quebec Coyotes, or name change. Maybe they're the Nordiques, or maybe they're the Salt Lake City Coyotes, or the Houston Coyotes, or maybe add another Dallas team. That would be interesting. Or add another team anywhere. Portland, who knows? But that doesn't change anything. Sixth place, but they could be competitive eventually, but I just don't foresee this team in a college arena doing much. I think it would be really funny and cool if they went on a huge heater and won a cup at Tempe. That would be actually really hilarious in that 4,600 capacity stadium. I had to say that twice for people to really hear it. Then the Connor Bedard team. Yes, they're going to be improved, but not good enough. And I think next season, following this one, I think they're going to be back in the playoffs. That's a little bit of a early take, but I like they add Taylor Hall and Connor Bedard, obviously. It might take him a year to get fully acclimated. And then last place, a lottery team. Who else other than the Winnipeg Jets? And that concludes my predictions for the standings. Now, the playoffs. So now we're going to start the playoff predictions. I'm sorry if there's a little background noise. It's just a little noisy in my house. That's on my end, not your end, just a heads up. So if you see any standings on the side, just don't pay attention to those numbers. I'm going to try and crop them out, but just a warning in case I can't crop them out. I just have to jig rig it a little so I could get the right playoff matchups. So in the first round, we are looking at the wild card we're looking at the wild card team here in the first wild card in the Eastern Conference versus the second place team in the Eastern Conference. So the Rangers versus the Toronto Maple Leafs. So we're going to be doing a little game by game. Should be nice. So game 1, it's going to be the Leafs, and then game 2, it's going to look like the Leafs are choking. Game 3, Leafs choking at Madison Square Garden. Game 4, Leafs choke, Madison Square Garden. Game 5, Leafs show life. Game 6, Leafs show life. Game 7, in just the biggest Leafs fashion, they win. I know. That was sarcastic, in case you couldn't tell. They come back from a 3-1 deficit against the Rangers. The Rangers choke, and you will see why if you look at my last video. They'll win that series in 7 games. Now, New Jersey versus Boston. The best team in the Eastern Conference versus the worst team in the Eastern Conference. I think New Jersey comes into game 1 swinging, game 2 swinging. Then game 3, head to TD Garden. Get put in a little bit of a rough spot. Sorry, I meant to click Boston. Put in a little bit of a rough spot. Then game 4, they show resilience, win, but Boston's not going to go down that easy. They force a game 6. Game 6, New Jersey goes to TD Garden and wins that series. New Jersey in 6. Now, on to that second place versus third place matchup in the Atlantic Division. It is Buffalo versus Florida. Buffalo, their first home playoff game in over a decade. They're going to lose it, though. Playoff inexperience, kind of like New Jersey, versus Florida's playoff experience. Then game 2, same thing. It's going to be kind of like New Jersey last year. It was a little different. Then they head to Florida, and the Buffalo Sabres head to Florida and figure things out. But game 4 is rough, and Florida prevails. And then Buffalo shows their resilience and shows how they can go on heaters, bring it home all the way at a Game 7 home in Buffalo, and win in amazing fashion. Now, the second place versus third place matchup in the Metro, and that last series, by the way, was Buffalo in 7. Now, we're going to have my predictions. I think that Carolina is just so overpowered. They're just gonna sweep the floor here. They're gonna destroy. And that brings us to the matchups in the Western Conference. Now, this is a series to watch. This would be interesting, but Vegas is going to look like they're going to go through this until they see the sea of red. And I know I said there's going to be some hot takes in this, and here's the hot takes. And Calgary does a good job. Isn't that shocking? They go all the way here, but Vegas ain't going down that easy. But as you could believe in it or not, the President's Trophy curse does not work this time. Vegas wins that series. And then we head over to this series, Stars versus Kraken. It's a rematch of the second round from this past season, and Dallas comes in rolling. First two games, that's foreseeable. Then Seattle does the same, wins their home games. Then Dallas wins their home game. Seattle wins their home game, and ultimately Seattle gets their revenge and wins in Dallas, and Seattle in 7. And that series before the Vegas series was Vegas in 7, if I didn't say that already. And now, it's such a common series. The Kings versus the Oilers. Second place, third place in the Pacific. And will the Kings finally do it? I don't know. We'll find out. First two games, Will Ferrell will be at Crypto, and they're going to come out swinging. Then the Oilers will choke at home, get put in a hole, but Connor McDavid, the best player in hockey, will obviously play amazing along with Leon Draisaitl, force a Game 7 back at Crypto, but their comeback won't be enough, and LA finally beats the Oilers after a tough one last year. Now, the Wild versus the Avs. I feel bad for you Wild fans. You are going to win Game 1 and Game 2, but you are going to lose Game 3, Game 4, Game 5, and Game 6. And you are the new Toronto Maple Leafs. First round chokers. And this brings us to the second round. Now the second round. Huge. Second round, we're going to start in the East again. You have Toronto versus Buffalo. But I keep comparing Buffalo to New Jersey, and it's just such a good comparison. But I think they're going to show more fight in the second round than New Jersey. They're going to lose Games 1, Game 2. They're going to win Game 3 and Game 4 at home. But they're going to lose Game 5. Then they're going to win Game 6, force a Game 7, and choke. And the Leafs finally are heading to the conference finals. That brings us now to New Jersey versus Carolina, a rematch, a second-round rematch. This New Jersey team will be pissed off after last year, and they win Game 1, Game 2 at the Rock, and then Game 3. The Caniacs will not be enough for the Devils. They will be rolling, and now, just like last year in the conference finals, Carolina will be swept, but rather in the second round, just because this New Jersey team has a chip on their shoulder from last year. And this brings us back to the Western Conference, where Vegas and LA will play. And this is actually going to be would be fun to watch, to see LA fans try and pack T-Mobile. I've been to T-Mobile Arena once. Well, that was Stanley Cup final game. So, I mean, I guess you can't really say that's what their everyday atmosphere is, but the fans there are great, and I think they would pack it. Vegas is going to win Game 1, Game 2. Then LA is going to respond in Game 3. But so will Vegas in Game 4, and they're going to head to T-Mobile and lose to LA. But then LA is going to choke at Crypto at home and Vegas in 6. That brings us to another rematch here. A huge rematch. Obviously, Colorado's going to look for some revenge here. They're going to come out swinging. But this Seattle team is going to prove that no fairy tale story or any team that's just disappointed about losing will knock them down, and they will blow right past the Colorado Avalanche. They will be an absolute wagon. That brings us to the conference finals. Now we start in the Eastern Conference Finals. Toronto will do like last year, how they celebrated so much in the first round. They are going to celebrate a lot in the second round. You'll see what that means in a minute. They are going to come out and they're going to be party drunk and lose game 1 and game 2 at the Rock, but they're going to come home and have a bit of a response, but then they're going to lose, and that dream is going to stay alive when they win in New Jersey, and then they win back at home. But like I said earlier, they partied a bit too much last year after the first round, and they're going to party too much after winning the second round for the first time in a while. And New Jersey, for the first time since 2012, will be headed to the Stanley Cup final. I believe that would be 12 years after. New Jersey will go to the Stanley Cup final, and Toronto may have to wait another year or more. We will see. And, that could go a lot of ways. We will see what happens to Toronto. Then this series, obviously the odds are going to be in the favor of Vegas. They just won the Cup. Winning 2 in a row has become a thing that people are starting to expect nowadays. But they're going to come in and they're going to dominate games 1 and 2 because that's in a Vegas fashion at at T-Mobile Arena. It's just going to be crazy there. But also, Climate Pledge Arena, forget about the name, but the crowd there is amazing, and they are going to win. And they are going to win Game 5 and Game 6. And just in the third year of their franchise, the 2 newest franchises will compete in that series. And now, like Vegas has had 2 Stanley Cup appearances in their first 6 years, they will not have a third, but rather Seattle will have their first by year 3. And they will be playing the New Jersey Devils in the Stanley Cup final. So now the Stanley Cup final. New Jersey, Seattle. So the way, not many people know this, but New Jersey and Seattle was a rivalry that the NHL has tried to manufacture just because that's something they tended to do through press once Seattle came to existence, because they thought that there would be an automatic rivalry with the Canucks, and that did not work whatsoever for some reason. I guess it's there, but not really. It wasn't taken too legitimately. So they decided to try and manufacture one and called something the Quid Cup, and I think that's how you pronounce it, and tried to manufacture New Jersey and Seattle. And I guess it works a bit because I see the teams try a lot in those games. So we're going to start this off. Seattle is going to be, they're on a wagon, but they're going to be tired. They're going to be very tired after a very, very tough series. New Jersey is going to have kind of like a series like they did in round 1. I get it was tiring, but that was just more stressful because it was a rivalry. Against Toronto, I think it's just going to be a few blowout games and then a big party for the win. But New Jersey, their players are not the type that party, and especially after their loss last year, are not the type that want to party and then go on to another series because they learned the consequences of that, and they're going to come out and win game 1. But this is a competitive series, it's going to be, and Seattle's going to respond in game 2. It's going to be neck and neck games. You're going to see a few overtime games if my predictions turn out to be right. That's how I feel about that. Then they head to they head to Climate Pledge Arena, and Seattle wins. And now New Jersey is in a spot that's very interesting in game 4. They're going to have to win, and they will do their job, and they will win and make this a 2-2 series headed back to the Prudential Center. But headed back to the Prudential Center, there will be a hectic game 5 and a blowout for New Jersey to win. And this will bring a huge game 6. But the fans in New Jersey, just like game 5 of the first round, party a bit too much. And like Eric Hall has said this year, closing out a team is the hardest thing to do. And the Seattle Kraken, with their home crowd behind them, win this and go to a game 7 at the Prudential Center. And you will probably see one of the best game 7s of your lives. and ultimately it's going to be a star like a Jack Hughes or a Matty Beniers that's going to give a heck of a performance on each side, bring this game to overtime, and then you're going to see one of those stars win it. And in this case, it would be win it for New Jersey. An overtime winner brings New Jersey their 4th Stanley Cup. Wow, that would be crazy. And this is a possibility for sure. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, subscribe, comment your thoughts, and here's the full bracket, I guess, for the most part. If you wanna, I probably have a screenshot up through editing, but please like, subscribe, comment, share. It means a lot. Put a lot of time and effort into these videos, and thank you for watching. Enjoy. Thanks.